All right, thanks for coming to flatlanderoffroad.com. Let's get those door struts installed. We're going to go through the instruction manual step by step. I'll have each step listed up in the corner of the video so you can easily page through the video, scroll back and forth to find the step you need. Let's get started. All right, step one, make sure the vehicle's in park. Roll down your windows to prevent any damage to the glass during installation, and remove the key. Step two, remove the rear glass panel by rotating each of the upper handles 90 degrees to the left. Be careful because the glass will tip out after those handles are turned. And then just go ahead and lift the glass out of the way and set it aside. All right, step three, you're going to install the ball studs using the black nut to each of the 4 brackets. The rear bracket, the ball stud's going to be pointing up. Each of the door brackets, the ball stud's going to be pointing down. Tighten those up all the way. So step number 4, using a T40 star bit, remove the bolt holding the rubber strap to the door. Keep this T40 bolt, we'll be reusing that later. And then the rubber strap can just be removed from the other mounting bolt through the slot. There are 6 body clip locations holding the upper door panel together to the door frame. We're going to take out all 6 of those. The center of the body clip turns out partially with a Phillips head screwdriver. And once you turn it out far enough to grab it with your fingers, you just take the center of the body clip out. The rest of the body clip will come out when we remove the inner part of the door panel. It'll just come out with the panel. Step 6, remove the upper part of the weather stripping just by pulling it loose. Leave the bottom of the weather stripping attached. It's going to make it easier to install it later. Now remove the upper part of the inner door frame by pulling it loose and then lifting it off of the lower door covering. Set that aside. Step 8, cover the window opening with some rags before you start drilling holes. And then you're going to drill out the top 2 body clip holes on the steel inner frame of the door with the 23/64 drill bit. The size of this hole is pretty critical because if it's too large, the rivet nut won't hold well. So be sure to get a 23/64 drill bit. So next you're going to install the rivet nuts into each of the 2 holes you just drilled out. So you're going to need an M6 mandrel. So if you need to buy a rivet gun to do this job, make sure that it's a metric, you have a metric set of mandrels. First, just finger tight, mount the rivet nut onto the tool with the handle open. You know, fully seat the rivet nut flange to the door frame. And then you're going to squeeze, release the pressure. You're going to use the knurled end to thread back into the rivet nut solidly. You're going to squeeze again, and you're going to repeat that process until it gets solid. And you'll feel the difference once it tightens up. Then you'll know it's fully seated. Right there. And then just use the knurled end, and it helps to squeeze the handle a little bit to release the pressure. The knurled end will turn easy then to turn the mandrel out of the rivet nut. And repeat for the second hole. Using your 1/2-inch drill bit, you're going to enlarge the 2 upper holes in the upper door panel we removed earlier. Just clean out the holes. So next we're going to install the upper door panel again. First, align it with the lower door panel. Press it down into place, and then push each of the body clips into the holes. After the body clips are in the holes, just press the center of the body clip back in by hand. You don't need a Phillips screwdriver for this part. And then reinstall the weather stripping by pressing it back into the channel around the door. We're going to reinstall the T40 bolt that we removed earlier that was holding the rubber strap to the door. This time we're going to turn it in past its original depth. It's going to be a little bit more resistance as you go past the original depth. Only tighten until it's flush with the plastic. Then you're going to take the small aluminum spacer and you're going to insert one into each of the holes, the 1/2-inch holes that you drilled out earlier. And then you want to assemble the hardware in the door bracket. Remove the red protective covering on the double stick tape and line up and start each of the bolts by hand to hold the bracket in place on the door. The upper door panel does move slightly, so if the holes don't line up enough, just move the door panel in place to get it to line up so you can start those bolts. Tighten only until the spacers and everything are snug together. Don't over tighten. Now we're done with the door bracket install. We're going to remove the nut and shoulder bolt holding the shoulder seat belt mount to the frame. So be careful when you're removing the shoulder bolt because there's a bushing between the plastic cover and the frame of the vehicle. So be sure to keep that bushing. We'll reuse that when we reinstall the shoulder mount. Here's the bushing right here. Next, we're going to remove the T40 bolt and spacer and the 10mm nut on the back side. The bolt and spacer won't be reused. The nut on the back side will be reused. So now this is the front of the cover for the shoulder mount for the seatbelt. We want to cut this opening in the back larger. So just take a piece of cardboard or even the corner of a piece of cardboard, stick that in there so it makes it easier for you so you don't cut all the way through. Use the stencil that we provided. Line that up with the hole and place that right on the plastic and then cut around that with a utility knife. Don't worry about getting it exact, but get it at least as large and try to get it as close as you can to the stencil shape. It's going to reduce the thickness that that shoulder bolt has to span to allow you to tighten the shoulder bolt fully. So just discard the part that you cut out. Let's go reinstall the shoulder mount. We're going to install the rear bracket by first installing the M6, the shorter M6 bolt that's supplied in the hardware kit. And we're going to reuse the 10mm nut that we took off from this location before. I've taped the nut to the wrench so it's easier to line up. We'll line that up and just finger tight the bolt in place. And then when you tighten this one, leave it a little bit loose so we can line up the lower bolt or the holes for the shoulder bolt later, just like that. We're going to replace the seatbelt shoulder mount by first putting the plastic cover back over. And remember, we cut the hole larger on the rear, so we're going to make sure that's oriented correctly. Next, we're going to replace the shoulder bolt fully seated through the metal bracket, and then we're going to put that thin bushing back in place, and then put it back into the hole and finger tight the original nut back onto the shoulder bolt. And then we're going to torque that to 40 foot-pounds. Once you have the shoulder bolt torqued to 40 foot-pounds, then you can tighten up the M6 bolt that we left loose earlier. All we need to do is press the strut onto the ball. Next step, reinstall the rear glass panel. Make sure that the glass is centered from left to right. So now we're going to try out the door to make sure it works properly. Just release the handle and let the strut support the door. Just like that. Now repeat the steps on the other side. Go strut your head.